not off the end of the runway, but it's.
Yeah, well, they mentioned that. They said.
It's already been through county planning. It was in the county.
Being recorded.
They built one down in Syracuse when they redid the airport down there. They put it
It all depends where they are in their relationship to the approach pattern.
So everybody had to get dressed today. It's nice.
But it's hard.
When you design an airport, you design it on 3 different runways.
I seen one of those Zoom
The
meetings.
whole Watertown
The guy sitting there with a suit coat on everything.
variable.
And he gets up and he's got
Somehow you
faxes down.
determine
It's like,
glare from
really?
a fixed solar panel.
oh, I forgot.
You gotta cover all 3
Uh,
approaches, whichever way.
yes, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
I'll call the Jefferson County Local Development Corporation meeting to order. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And they're all in sync today.
You talk about airports, I almost joined you virtually this morning.
It's hard when you're zooming.
Flight out of Phoenix got delayed, so I was really connecting flight in Philly. That was looking for
Is that usually got arrested for not wearing a mask?
No, $10,000 fine. Then got to Philly, and then, so finally we barely made it. I mean, fortunately they waited for us. Last flight of the day, there were actually like 9 of us on that flight. We didn't connect to Watertown. But then coming to Watertown, he starts coming down, pulls back up. He goes, well, can we make another pass? Fog's kind of low. If not, we'll have to take you to Rochester. But we made it. Second password.
Did your luggage make it though?
Yeah.
Going into Syracuse one time, there was a snowstorm, and he comes down, and you could see the tops of the houses, and all of a sudden, he just hit the afterburners and took us right up. He put the circles around and says, well, folks, he goes, we're gonna take another pass at that, and he says, we kind of missed the runway that time. I'm going, oh, boy. We did our pledge, privilege of the floor. We don't have anyone here. Minutes from our last meeting. We all received them. Is there any additions and/or corrections?
No. I move to accept as presented.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer's report?
Page 5 of your packet, pretty straightforward. So 96,000 a month is break even. We're averaging a little over 100,000 on the revenue side. On the expenses, similar 96,000 a month. Expenses per month is break even. We're only spending about 79,000 per month, so you can see we have about 193,000 surplus right now. 2020 we had 170K surplus. So as the different programs, which are on page 6 and 7 and 8, maybe catch up and spend some additional funds as the summer and the fall goes on. The surplus may dwindle a little bit, but it looks like it still might be a surplus by the end of the year. It's a guesstimate. But so page 6 is our ag program. It's on target to be at or under budget at this point. Page 7 is our, support budget for operations for our businesses and things. Again, we've spent very little. Some of these things will be happening soon, like the safety training and
Yes.
those are things that are planned. It's delayed a little bit. Okay, so
Well, we've been doing the safety training, but the grant this year was small. Usually they award the funds. We would have had the fund back last August. They just awarded the fund this spring. So.
Okay. And then advertising is the last on page 8. Again, it's reasonably on target for at or below budget. Page 9 is your balance sheet. So our quick assets are about 23,000 higher than prior period. Receivables are about 36,000 lower than prior period. Current assets are just over 12,000 lower than prior period. And total liabilities are about 34,000 lower than prior period. Excuse me. Total capital is about 20,000 higher than prior period. Page 10 of your loan packet is just a snapshot of the loan program. Lyle or Joy, I'm not sure who put this. The only, on Clayton Island Tours, it says 30 days, but all the other ones say current or, what does the 30 days mean? it's late by 30 or I didn't know?
Yes, late by
Okay,
30.
all right, because usually it said delinquent or something, delinquent one, I just didn't know if that
No,
was the same.
we usually put 30 days.
Okay, because
60
all the other
days.
ones say delinquent one, delinquent two, on the other packet,
He
JCIDA.
does the ad.
Okay.
He does the
I just want to
ad.
understand the nomenclature, that's fine. I didn't want to assume that's what that meant. Okay, so it's 30 days late is what you're referring, there. And I had a question on LCO Destiny. I guess because this report is as of June 30th, it at that point was interest only.
Right.
Okay, so that's, and it is current.
And
I know
believe it's in this one to approve the.
Yeah, no, I know there's some, I didn't remember when the interest only,
Ended in
ended. I
June.
thought, okay, so for some reason I had April in my mind and I wasn't sure if
June
If that
was the
was
last
right.
interest only payment.
So
I couldn't
Prinzio's
find that,
also
I couldn't
in.
find that, so,
What's
yeah,
that?
Prinzio's interest only.
as long as it's
also in.
current, that's fine.
June.
So that's the treasurer's report, I would make a motion to accept it as presented.
For
So
a
moved.
whole year, something like that.
There's a motion and a second.
I'd have to look. I didn't catch the first and second, sorry.
Another motion.
John had a second. Any questions on the treasurer's report?
Just to expand upon that, so the interest only post-COVID ends for everybody with June's payment?
Not everyone, because I think we had some loans that didn't begin until July or like there were
Later.
just a couple though.
Yeah.
Most of them, yes.
I'd say by August report, it's back to normal
Yeah.
for everyone, for
Yeah.
sure.
I think the zero.
I think a number of them would have ended in April or May.
Yeah.
The majority,
Most of
April,
them.
May, the majority of them
June
would have
started the
ended.
regular, right.
On the motion, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Loan review, loan review.
Loan review.
Save your voice here. We had two considerations during loan review, and there's resolutions on your agenda for both, Clayton Yacht Club and LCO Destiny. So we discussed, both of those applications. Clayton Yacht Club was a $40,000 loan request to pay for actually completed repairs from 2019, 2020 high water. They made a good presentation. The loan review committee considered it. It checked all of the boxes with regards to contribution of equity, term of loan, interest, duration of loan, and it looked to be a very safe investment under the, let's see, was this micro or revolving loan? I forget now.
Revolving loan.
Revolving loan. It says it on the resolution if I look at it. So all of that, it was approved by loan review committee to be considered by what Dave is now going to ask you to consider formally.
Sure. I have resolution number 0709, 2021.01, resolution for authorizing a revolving loan to Clayton Yacht Club Incorporated. It's a loan amount of $40,000. Interest only for 12 months, then 3% for 5 years. I entertain a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The second consideration we brought up in loan review was LCO Destiny requested a, I don't know, for lack of a better term, reamortization of their loan to a more manageable monthly payment. And then during loan review, we considered a balloon 12 months in the future. That's the resolution, so I can find it. So we discussed in loan review to generate a set of terms and interest that would approximate $2,000 per month payment, and then the balloon would occur a year from now, in July of 2022. And we also put an added contingency that if the building were sold before then, the balloon payment would be made at that point. And that was considered, discussed and considered at loan review, and then put into this resolution that I'll update to read.
Resolution number 0709, 2021.02. The resolution for authorizing a modification to the revolving loan to LCO Destiny LLC. It's a reamortization at $2,000 a month. As Rob said, for the next 12 months with a balloon payment in July of 2022. Entertain a motion in a second for this resolution.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second?
Discussion.
Quick question.
Sure.
Has LCO Destiny been made aware of the terms of this resolution? What the board is considering? Because this is a little different than what they requested.
It actually is a little different.
Actually, what we'll do, Paul, we'll do an homage to the existing loan documents and get that to Lisa and re-amortize it.
But is she aware of what we're,
I don't know if she is yet.
okay.
It hasn't been approved, so
I'm pretty sure I told her what loan.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
what loan, yeah.
They had a couple minor comments in it, and I'm not sure they're entirely necessary, but in the third whereas clause, we put the building is sold. I mean, we all agree prior to the balloon payment. I wonder if we should put if the building is sold prior to balloon payment, the loan were paid in full, to be for clarity. And full payment in July, should we put a date, like end of July, like, I'm assuming it's the end of July, not the beginning of July, because July is 30 days.
Right.
So if you wanna, those are my only two comments, just for clarity, should we put a date the balloon payment should occur? So it says full payment in July of 2022, I'm just saying, put a
July
date,
30th.
put a date, and then, the added contingency that if building is sold, I'm suggesting prior to balloon payment, then the loan will be repaid in full. I think that's what we intended, but it's just
I think
clarity.
well, and her intent too is, if she sells the building. should be-
No, I know that, but it
No, that's
just, we
fine.
might as well
No,
write it
no,
down,
you're
because
right.
I'm sure that's what we all intended to mean, but just for clarity, it's easier to write what you mean.
Yeah.
Can you remind me what LCO Destiny?
It's
what
the
type-
time-
Time
time
was framed, you probably know.
Time was
the time
framed.
Yeah, I was framed. Yeah.
So those are my, I guess, only two suggested additions, add a date after July, pick the date of the calendar, and prior to the balloon payment between sold and then. If the building is sold prior to the balloon payment, comma then. If no one objects to those, or if there's further discussion.
So the,
Motion, you want to accept his amendments? You made the motion, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
I thought I seconded, but that's okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
she
did second, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
He made the motion.
I made the
Okay.
motion?
Yes.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it
says in a minute.
So your motion is as
That's
amended,
what it
right?
will say.
Yeah, it's as amended.
And I'll second that.
Sorry. Hey,
It's
come on, this
Friday.
is early. It's Friday.
Alrighty. Any other discussion?
so do I gather that she's looking for a complete change in operations? She's not looking to downsize. She may be selling the building and.
She's consolidating, and because they have another building in the back of the park. If you go down to where Henderson Manufacturing and then swing around the corner to the left, they're consolidating into that one building.
So,
So she's continuing to operate,
Yeah.
which is better than
right,
the
change in
alternative.
operations versus.
Yeah.
That's good.
On the motion, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We did talk about sponsorship for the Jefferson County Fair.
You're right.
And, so I guess Jay, you want to talk to us about the fair sponsorship and what they're doing for us and?
Sure, yep, and thank you very much, Dave, for making that happen. So yes, we are, one of the sponsors for the Jefferson County Fair. We're gonna have a banner there, we're gonna have posters there, we're gonna be giving out the posters that we created for June, the ones that are right there on the table. They have placed our ad The long version, the 2-minute, 14-second version of the commercial that was running all during June, that is on their Facebook page and on their website. So they were very, very, very appreciative of that sponsorship. That helped them out significantly. So kudos to you and the board of directors for making that happen.
That starts Monday or Tuesday?
Tuesday. So very good. But thank you very much for doing that.
Does that come out of your
Sure.
budget, Jay?
Marshall and I are still discussing.
Data can drive. Last 18 months, they've been collecting all the
Either way,
water.
we've got, the flexibility to do that. I mean, we're all under budget anyway this year.
Yeah.
COVID, and just being unable to do a lot of things. And it's-
We're marketing the county. That's great. Alternative energy, Bill.
We didn't actually meet since the last meeting.
I just have one thing, a request to Jay. Jay, yesterday Dave sent out an email about a new proposed project in the town of Hounsfield off the end of the airport, 20 megawatt. It's on that portion of land owned by the hydro facility. And the county records show there's 100 acres of tillable land there. I think it'd be interesting, based upon your presentation in the past on the tillable land impacts, maybe you could make a request of soil and water for a soil breakdown like you would if it was in the ag district, and then use that as a case study to see how your concept would affect pilot negotiations on that project.
Sure, yeah, I'd be more than happy to. I'll get the information from Dave and, we can.
Just as a case study to see your concept, how it would affect if that project goes forward, if
Yeah.
you used it.
Absolutely.
Did I read that correctly? Isn't it in the farmland protection program? Didn't they call that out in the application?
I'm not,
I read that in that application, something in the
It's-
farmland protection.
it doesn't currently receive any agricultural district benefits. I know that much. It's currently just hayed.
Yeah, it might be in the certified ag district, but I think what you're saying, Paul, is it doesn't receive an ag value assessment, which I don't.
From what I saw in the county records, it's not receiving an ag exemption,
Yeah,
which would require rollback taxes.
right,
But even if it's in an ag district,
that doesn't.
so I just think it would make sense to look at that as like a test case study for your concept.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
It's a good idea, but I'll give you the down and dirty. After it's done, it won't be applicable. I farmed that land for.
Well, I don't disagree with
The soil
that.
types and everything, it's not gonna, there won't be anything there classified as prime farmland. Because of drainage, because of soil drippings.
Yeah, but we could still run it
Right.
and just, see what it shows up as. So, great idea, great idea.
Building and grounds. We'll probably have quick do that. And
Yeah, I think anything under building ground would be considered in the ag ordinance.
Jay. Agriculture.
Agriculture. Good morning, everyone. So lots going on. Some of the information that you've been sent previously. And if you have any questions outside the meeting, feel free to ask. So where do I start? Meat processing, meeting with some of the small scale meat processors, one today, and I'm setting up meetings for the other one in the future. There's a grant opportunity that just came out that could potentially help with their interest to go from small scale custom processing to small scale USDA processing. So I'm going to be running out to one of them this afternoon to meet with them and start to help them through that process. So hopefully it'll help move some of those along. Now I'm starting to draw blanks. On the video, very interesting. Commissioner Ball, New York State Department of Ag and Markets, requested the opportunity to showcase that at his Dairy Day breakfast at the New York State Fair. So that continues to generate interest out there, which is fantastic. We've gotten so much response back from that. It's been great. We've been working, met with a local furniture maker a week ago, looking at what kind of help we can provide them with a little expansion project. So there's a lot of things going on. There's been a lot more to come. So we just put in a proposal for a manufacturing project that we found out about through the state. So we're keeping our fingers crossed on that. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of things going on, and certainly appreciate the work that all of you have done to support agriculture in a lot of different ways. So thank you very much. Oh, and if anybody is interested, like usual, I have tickets. These are 2 for 1, buy one, get one free for the Watertown Rapids baseball games. These are good for any game coming up, even tonight. So if you're interested, let me know. I got lots of them. That's it. Thank you.
I would say it was a quick summary, but Jay's been putting in team a lot of work on this proposal for example, this last dairy processing. I think you mentioned the other one. And actually, I mentioned I was on a call the other day with the regional council, and ESD was talking, and even one of the folks at ESD, just to mention, they were mentioning the relationship with the counties in the North Country, and the idea is being engaged and said, for example, Jefferson County mentioned the proposal they got on that project and commended how well done it was. So.
Good job, Jay.
Teamwork.
Absolutely.
Or the annual meeting that was planned, is fall an option, or are you just gonna bump it to next year?
I had not considered doing one for the fall. I would say let's talk about that at the Ag Council meeting on the 20th and discuss whether we want to do something or not. It's a little bit short to put together a big annual meeting type effort because of the amount of fundraising I'll have to do. But we raised $10,000 in 2 months this spring, so you never know. But anyways, if the Ag Council would like a annual meeting / conference type program, we can certainly entertain that and see what we can put together.
Thanks, Jay. Manufacturing, Dave?
Sure. Well, now that COVID's up, I haven't had a chance yet. We've been preoccupied with a lot of other things, but we're going to reconvene, get our manufacturing council reconvene and get going back to meetings. I will say the safety training program we were just talking about before the meeting, we're continuing with that again this year. That we started halfway through the year because of the delays in the state getting the award notices out and funding issues with the state. But we'll be wrapping that up in July. But we've got the week after next, the deadline is due for the next grant application. So actually, I talked to SciTech Business Solutions. Typically, we started out applying to grant for Jefferson County. And over the years, we've expanded it to include the other 2 counties, our neighbors. And then we contracted with SciTech to do the training. What I talked to them about, and they're doing it, is they're going to take the week now applying for the funds. Because, we have in mind of doing it, but it's just with enough going on here. We're contracting with them to do the training. It kind of eliminates our role as a middle person, and it kind of saves some administrative staff time on something that can be done directly through SciTech. So we're working with the other counties to support that project. So we're putting an application this year.
Good deal. Any questions for Dave? Marshall, marketing.
Good morning, everyone. A couple of quick things. We have restarted our we've restarted basically all of our advertising vehicles. Digital, so we're doing this time around, we're doing some pre-roll as well as our YouTube campaign. We've re-engaged our Canadian consultant, and we are looking forward to the border being reopened. We continue with all of our interagency communications. And one new thing that has just been finalized is a snowmobile impact study for Jefferson, Lewis, Oneida, and St. Lawrence counties. That was a group effort, and the impacts on the snowmobiling are significant. It's a great program, and there's some nice graphics that kind of outline all the benefits of it. Among many other things that we have going on.
So that's out now, the impact study?
Yep.
And is that through with Tuck Hill?
Tokyo.
Okay. So that's where we find it on their website?
I'll be sending the graphic out. We just got the finalized version yesterday.
Cool.
And you're gonna see it all
Check
over
that out.
social media. And everything else.
Anything else?
That's it.
Unfinished business?
Got two things for you. One, you recall the child care program we supported in partnership with Lewis County. That's underway now. I think, I forget the number now, was it 12? When they ended up with 10 or 12. Interested parties basically did the orientation session and now kind of signed up and enrolled in the program to start some child care. The idea is to provide them some training and technical assistance, not just on complying with child care regulations, but also sort of dealing with the business side of the running a home-based business as well. So hopefully they get through that, and we'll see a few more home-based childcare opportunities here. And the other idea is we hear that the state may be putting some funds toward childcare programs. If it becomes available, we can kind of tweak this. We've got something running as a model, and we can kind of tweak and improve and maybe carry out some state funding into the future.
And for reference, their typical cycle on that is like 3 students.
Yeah.
So this is a really significant increase for a critical thing.
The second thing, the comprehensive economic development strategy that we work on with the county every 5 years, that's underway. What we also refer to as the SEDS. Actually, Marshall, Jay, and I are all on that committee, but there's a good cross section of people from various agencies representing various private sectors of private business. And we'll be meeting next week. We had some data analysis done by the consultants, Des Moines Associates. Members of the committee, there's about 21 of us on the committee, have, based on discussion stuff, kind of submitted ideas for various projects, along with Des Moines' own suggestions based on their analysis and what they've heard through some of their interviews. They've done a series of one-on-one interviews with various business leaders around the county. And so we're going over that list, kind of starting to see something soon on that next week. So it's moving along.
Dave, question. Do you anticipate that we might reinstate re-implement the economic forecast conferences that we used to do?
Yeah. Good idea. Yeah.
They were always interesting.
Yeah, you're
Panel.
right. Yeah. We should do that.
One of the things that's
One
becoming
of those things we've kind of forgotten about and lost in the hustle lately, but we should be doing it.
one of the things that's surfacing on trying to get people back to work is coming back to childcare. That's the stumbling block.
Mhm.
A lot of people are ready to enter the workforce, but guess what? They've got to handle the childcare, and there's no options.
Yeah. It is. In fact, I just did a column in the Northern North Business Magazine about that. I mean, in fact, it is economic development. I mean, it's like workforce training. It just enables the workforce. It impedes recruitment. People either can't, or for the employers, it's workforce stability. Okay, someone's going to show up today or not show up because they can't get childcare.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of free childcare options were available, especially for essential workers. Here in the last 10 days or so, I believe it was 2.5 million was authorized for an appropriation for free childcare for essential workers.
The challenge is where are the childcare slots?
Dave, something we did bring up similar to this, you talked about workforce stability, we had debated probably 2 years ago now, talking to the city and dealing with transportation out to the industrial parks on the edge and outside of the city limits, because that does.
Yeah, actually, that's some of
I hear from time to time, that's another significant problem. The buses drop you off, and you gotta walk half a mile, and you gotta do this. If there was a way to get bus runs in and out of parks.
I spoke to them about a year ago. We talked about this.
Okay.
The Volunteer Transportation Center is kind of managing that for the city now. I think that is on their plan, working through that in phases, and not yet, but on my list of kind of touch base on, because just remind them.
Bill's got 40 million to spend, so we can maybe put a few bucks into it.
So
40?
Well, I hear you got a lot of money.
Well, it's getting people out to
20 anyway.
getting work out.
Some of that's gone our way.
It's getting worked
I
on
know.
in Corbett Park, getting, people, to Fort Drum or from Fort Drum to the
Yeah.
community, so.
But I know like Lewis County does, they have bus runs to
Yeah.
Old Forge for students to go work at like Enchanted Forest. So they do different things and bringing them into the college campuses and things. So something similar in this area
Yeah.
to attract people from outside of the physical city limits to where it seems like our industry is growing. It's not in the city limits proper. Like that little gray line shouldn't be a barrier to getting people to work. Once their kids get babysat, they need to get to work.
It is another challenge, you're right.
That is a big challenge,
Yeah.
from what I hear.
Yeah, but I will be following with them on that. So.
Housekeeping, I know we've been busy and everything. We are heading into budget season, so we'll have to get some committee meetings together. I believe, are we supposed to have our budget by August?
August, yes, we are. I've completed the LDC and we'll probably wrap up IDA today.
Okay.
And I sent a copy to David, so we need to sit down and discuss it. Then we need to schedule a finance committee, which we will do.
It would have to be presented at the August board meeting or the end of August.
We should have done it at this meeting,
Okay.
but it wasn't ready.
Okay.
And so we'll be a month late. August will be.
Okay.
August board meeting.
Anything else for the LDC?
Yeah, under new business, speaking of budget, we have our annual letter from the county administrator, Bob Hageman, for the other agencies that they fund, saying it's time for our budget request, that if we need to request more funding, that they'll take that into consideration. We need to prepare the forms, or if we need to, if we're fine with level funding, just to indicate that. I think probably given the situation, I mean, we're in a better position now, financially, than we were the last time we actually asked for an increase. So I recommend that we just tell the county we're fine with level funding next year. But we need to notify them by, I think it's August 19th, or maybe it's the 20th. So everybody's comfortable with that?
Yeah, for the status quo funding, I know we have some special projects that are other
Yes,
considerations. But,
So when you say level funding back to the county, I mean, I look at areas such as the micro enterprise loan fund, which is, kind of
dwindled.
dwindled.
Well,
It's become more stable.
That's not counting funding.
Right.
All right,
That was.
that's my question.
yeah,
that was another-
The line.
So our
is-
county funding has always been about 270 for marketing and 136, I think, for ag.
138.
And last year, what is it?
138.
Yeah, and then last year they did an across the board 2% increase to all the agencies. So that new number is what we have now. Things like our revolving loan funds, micro enterprise, those were grants the county got that we were then became the subrecipient to administer those on behalf of the county.
We still probably have to, through finance or whoever the committee is, figure out a way to take some of these surplus funds we have from all of these projects and deploy them into the revolving loan and micro enterprise. Micro enterprise, I know it can't be called that, but we had that debate 2 years ago as well. It seems like everything was 2 years ago. But,
Yeah.
the micro enterprise stabilized a little bit. It looked like it was going to be approaching zero quite quickly and didn't get there.
We've been there many times.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing.
Over the 13, 14 years I've been there.
We got to bet on the successes.
Yeah.
Bill, what kind of shape is the county?
I've been here 16.
We seem to be pretty good shape. I mean, that some of the things that we anticipated, like sales tax and stuff, didn't really go down as low as we thought. Actually, it's been good. So I think we're in pretty good shape.
Actually, the tourism side, I think, just as a side, Corey Fram, the Director of Tourism Council, was telling us that right now their bookings are up to where they were in 2019, before the pandemic. So they're getting back on course. I mean, sure, they felt the pain. I mean, some very serious pain last year because of the pandemic, but they're kind of rebounding. So
The federal funding helped everyone through
yeah,
PPP funds and.
If boat traffic and fishing trailers are any indication of tourism, it's back beyond all indications of the highest possible. It's just they're not Canadian plates, they're Delaware, Pennsylvania, and it's just different group of people showing up to this area for world-class fishing.
But I'll say this, watch out though, with the border opening.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for opening the border, I can't wait, but let's all be prepared, we will all have giving up our seats at any of the restaurants. We
That's
don't
right.
giving up our seats
That's done
for
that
any
anyway, so
events
they're
we wanna go to. We'll get in line, it'll be a get in line.
Dave, do you need a motion?
It'll be the
To
same way going the other
accept-
way.
to go back to the
America's going
county.
to Canada too.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're right.
we want a motion for the budget request of the county.
Sure.
I'll move it.
Second.
On the budget request to the county, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Oh, one thing I should have mentioned on the SEDS plan this year, so it's a federal grant from the Economic Development Administration, and it's matched partly by cash from us, cash from the county, and then in-kind from the county, and that's in terms of the development of the SEDS plan, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. An element of that, part of the match is coming from the Thousand Islands Council. Their funds are going toward we're taking on the specific focus on the hospitality and tourism industry, so we're doing a separate report for them that's going to be incorporated into the SEDS overall, our overall recommendation. But just recognizing the importance of tourism to the area and that. So that'll be part of this one. Actually.
Very good. Anyone have anything else for the LDC?
Nothing from council, I said, Justin.
Morning, Justin.
Hey, good morning, folks.
You don't have anything for the LDC this morning?
No, I don't have any items over here to report on. I'll follow up with Dave and Lyle on any, the loan, if they need any assistance for closings.
Perfect.
It's got a lot for the IDA.
I'll move for adjournment of the LDC.
Second. Motion and a second to adjourn, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Stand adjourned. We're almost on time. With that,
We'll blow that budget right now.
I'll call the order of the Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency. This is our July board meeting. And with that, I'll open the privilege of the floor. Anyone want to address the board?
Yes, my name is Norm Paradis. I'm a town board member for the town of Worth. And I just was shown this in my lap concerning the UTEP policy that you're proposing to change. You'll have to forgive me, I don't have all the information I need because the supervisor gave me this information yesterday as far as the proposed change in that policy. And basically, from what I understand, it affects the towns rather agreeing to what you call the neighborhood or the
Host community.
Host community agreement.
yeah, that's it. And this way, the money that the town is getting from the applicants for renewed energy normally would go to the town. Now, with that change, from what I understand, is that with the money coming in for the town now would be taken away from through the pilot program. Is that my understanding, or how is that working?
No, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, if you wanted to get the discussion now, or maybe address it when we're doing discussion, however you want to do it during the board meetings.
We can address it when we get to it in the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll address that and then that's in our agenda, so we'll,
All right, well, I
you're welcome.
appreciate
But if you have
Well,
specific concerns you'd like to you identify right now, we'll discuss, we can take that.
Yeah, I just, I guess the whole thing that I'm looking at, without getting to too many wishes and questions and all that stuff, is that you as a JCIDA, your policy is to encourage investment and job creation and retention in Jefferson County. I get the impression you are discouraging towns to take the brave step of welcoming renewable energies in their regions, in their town or in the county by changing that policy. Because the host community money that the applicants would give to the town would encourage the town to, some of this money could be used for a park or whatever to improve the town's environment. So that's all I have to say for now. If I don't know if I can speak later on, but I feel a little intimidated in front of all of you.
Don't feel intimidated by us.
You might be sitting here in 2 years.
We've taken your name down, you'll be nominated.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm Ken Gleason with the town of Rutland. I'm here about the pilot program also. So, wait till you get into it, I guess.
Similar concern,
Yeah.
the same style of concern?
Yeah.
All over the host community agreement clause of the UTEP.
Mr. Valentine, how are you?
You're not here for the Utah.
I'm here just as a tenant of the industrial park, and I noticed on the agenda a discussion on zoning changes with the town of Watertown. And I know a year ago we had talked about better communication with the town and the JCIDA. I've been attending all the planning board meetings I can and following the website for the town board meeting and minutes, and I have not seen any discussion about zoning changes. So this is the first chance I have to see what the talk is about and hopefully learn something from this discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have anyone on Zoom?
Craig Fox. Okay. I'm assuming that's Craig Fox.
Thank you, gentlemen. We all received the minutes from our both meetings. We had a June 3rd and our special meeting of June 14th.
As offered, no changes to either. I make a motion to accept as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? On the motion to approve, accept. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Treasurer's report.
Page 28 of your packet, excuse me. Break even budget is $109,500 a month. We're averaging a little over $200,000, predominantly from the leaseback sale revenue. Contribution from the closings that we've had to date, and there's a few more coming through. So that's putting us in the surplus in the revenue side. On the operational expense side, again, break even is an average of $109,500 a month. We're only spending $100,000, so we're spending less, earning more, which shows surplus to date of $931,000 odd dollars. That could certainly grow. I know we're going to spend some more, and we've got a few more closings that may happen in this fiscal year, which I believe you have to book by the 30th of September.
Yes.
Right? So it certainly should stay a very significant surplus. It may actually be in the seven figures by the time we're done, which is a good thing. You just have to find a way to reserve that for next year. Page 29 of your packet is 146 Arsenal. So year to date, we spent $186,000. Some of those are soft costs like depreciation and things like that. It looks like we've spent an actual, when you account for electric, water, salary expense, real monies. We spent $105,000 to date. It looks like by the end of the year, end of the year meaning October, if we weren't to close prior to then, we might spend as much as $130,000, maybe approaching $150,000, which is better than last year. Last year we spent a little bit more than that, and I know a lot of it's hinging upon getting the remediation in place and getting the closing. So hopefully we can close before the end of this fiscal year and stop that. Page 30 of your board packet is your balance sheet. Quick assets, $485,000 higher than prior period. Receivables, $493,000 lower than prior period. The miscellaneous funds are about $4,000 lower, so net effect of current assets are $12,000 lower than prior period. Total assets are about 18,000 lower than prior period, and total current liability is virtually unchanged, $1,300 less than prior period. And total capital is 16,000 lower than prior period. Still in very good position with regards to all of the funding and what have you. Page 30. Turn the page here. I think it's 36. Yeah, page 36, 7, and 8 are just snapshots of our various loan programs. The revolving loan fund, we've got a few that are delinquent, and I'm sure we're following up on those. I don't know if there's anything, Lyle, you said you prepared this report?
Yes.
Okay, anything you want to add with any of the
No, it's pretty much the same as last month.
There virtually is unchanged.
Actually, we don't have any delinquencies in the RLF. We have some.
Micro.
Oh, sorry. I got a staple right there. It looked like it said revolving. Sorry, you're right. Micro.
Yeah. And those, I think we're okay on them. It's
Okay.
slow pay.
Yeah, and 38 is our larger fund program. That's all good. So that's the treasurer's report. I would move to accept as presented.
Second.
Any discussion or questions on the treasurer's report? On the motion, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Loan review, Rob.
Okay, loan review. We had, one item that we debated, and there was a couple other topics. Standard machine and fabrication, you'll see there's a resolution which we'll let Dave Converse address here in a moment. They were requesting $20,000 to establish some additional equipment to provide a kind of an essential service that doesn't appear to be located within the geographical area, to develop a machine shop to service local repairs. So they would take outsourced machining rotors and heads and things of this nature, which a lot of the car manufacturers don't do inside. So Justin Poirier, I think is his name. Yeah, Justin Poirier. He made a good presentation to us. We considered it, and we would be in a second position behind Watertown Savings Bank. And we had really no issues with the loan application. Was well done. So Converse, I'll leave it to you.
Resolution number 0709 2021.01. It's a resolution for authorizing a micro enterprise loan to Standard Machine and Fabrication. It's a loan for $20,000 with 5-year amortization at a rate of 5%.
I'll move the resolution.
Second, or third.
Further discussion?
Glad to see it. It's greatly needed. It'll get utilized.
Yeah, even for
A lot of that
truckers.
stuff is all going to Syracuse right now.
That's what he said.
On the motion, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Rod. Unfinished business, Dave, 146 Arsenal.
Right, we'll start here. Actually, I don't know if maybe we want to move the agenda. I mean, if Ed wants to say that's fine, but the corporate park zoning can already be a quicker topic.
Sure.
If we want to address that now and get that out of the way. So, to Ed, I attended a work session with the town planning board back early June. And their plan, they said, rather than try to go through a whole zoning amendment or zoning overlay, their preference is to propose that their site plan review would include a requirement that a project comply with any existing covenants in the property.
When you say theirs, you mean Town of Watertown?
Town of Watertown,
Okay,
yeah. So meaning that if it didn't comply with the covenants, then, and they would want a letter from the IDA saying that it does or does not require their approval. But a couple of things, they want to leave the interpretation of whether something complies with the covenants on the IDA. Things like setback requirements, things that are pretty straightforward. There's no interpretation of that, but that's their preference. So my other question to them, which they're still trying to determine, is that, okay, if you go that route, can the town, because part of our interest in seeing the zoning amendments done is that it then can be enforced through the town. The town is in a better position to enforce that as part of site plan review and zoning than we are as an agency. And They believe so, but they're waiting for a word on their attorney, Joe Russell, on whether that is enforceable. So I just talked about it a week ago and they hadn't gotten an answer back to that yet.
In their scheme of doing this, we have to be present during the site plan review?
No.
Because it would just delay the approval of any project.
We would just have to give, send a letter saying that the project does or does not comply with.
So as they accept an application, we would be an involved agency essentially, and
Yes.
say, does this or doesn't this apply to?
Yeah.
And then they could or could not rely upon our advice.
Right.
It puts us in a crap position.
Right, yeah, it
I'm
does.
gonna tell you
Well, no,
right now.
I think that they're putting it on us. I mean,
Justin probably has a more technical term for it, but.
Yeah, the intent is that they'll say, in other words, if we say it doesn't comply with the covenants, they're saying then the town will not give it approved site plan.
And that just expands the number of people that could be brought
All I
into
got
an
to say
Article
is covenants are absolute.
Yeah.
The town should just do what they're asked to do by law, period. I don't know why we're getting involved with this dancing, the slow dance. Frankly, it's my opinion.
Well, sometimes, for example, our setback in the covenants is 75 feet. The town's setback in the zoning is 50 feet.
Great.
Yep. So the town can approve 50 feet.
We gave him an opportunity. It's a plan development district. It's a simple thing in zoning. All they gotta do is say the covenants are the rules, period.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin, again, probably has more technical terms, but.
I think
Hopefully
you're,
it's crap.
let's not forget that Joe Russell that represented us in the past represents the town, and he told us all along that the town could not enforce the deed covenants. And that's the reason we suggested an overlay district to the town. I don't know why they're worried about having to interpret it. They have to interpret it in every other zone that they create the uses.
Here's the way I look at it, Dave. Every time we interpret something that doesn't benefit an applicant that doesn't like an answer, you got an Article 78 shoved right up our butt. And we're gonna be paying legal defenses and fighting useless claims and basically just babysitting everything. It's just not worth our effort. I hate to be so blunt about this, but it's a crap position.
Well, we created a park subcommittee here to deal with park issues, and maybe it's time that we get that committee to meet with the town again and explain our concerns and hear theirs and move forward. I mean, Ed's right. It's been, ever since COVID, we haven't had a meeting. Well, once we did, we met with individuals, but it's time to pick that up again and see if we can't convince the town that an overlay district is really in not only their best interest,
Absolutely.
but the park owner's interest.
So maybe we do that. We'll see if we can schedule a work session, make an open work session, maybe ask for, make it open so there can be comments from park tenants as well.
Yeah.
Where's Joe Russell gonna fall in on that as far as their legal representative?
Well, if he's consistent with what he told us in the past, it's not the town's responsibility to enforce the covenants.
Which it's not truly, it's not under the current, what we're trying to do is try to get the town to incorporate.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question is, so is that a case where Justin can put some?
I'm gonna ask Justin we'll ask Justin to take a look at it and give us some advice as the best way to move with this.
Sure, yeah, I'm aware of some of the issues in the background. With the companies that have been cited there, they're somewhat inconsistent with the covenants and the issues that are going on with other landowners and developers that are there already. We can take a closer look at the covenants themselves and some of the backdrop and get some alternatives or at least an analysis of what the potential recourse is depending on which path you go down. I know you're juggling with former council issues and their relationship with the town, so we'll try to be as tactful and helpful as we can.
Thank you.
Yep.
By the way, I don't mean to have my back to you.
No, it's okay, don't worry at all.
He's making faces at you.
Get his camera off.
Okay. That's
So
we'll
we'll let you know when we get something set up.
Super, thanks.
Okay. Let's go right to number 3. USL&E.
So US Light and Energy, the Solitude Solar Project, that was a project that was up in Philadelphia that was associated with Boise. They had some confusion over that project about whether or not they needed to go through the IDA for tax abatement. I realized they did it last minute. Remember, we were actually working at that point to try to fast track it. We could do maybe a temporary tax abatement while we negotiate things. They finally decided, that we'll just work directly with the taxing jurisdictions. And so they had submitted applications. Matt Moses, Swartz and Moses, said they didn't really have anything worth billing on that project. We did do some now, so they're asking for a refund of the fee, which is $2,500 per project, which would be $10,000. So there's no real legal fees in that case. We did do some work on staff as far as preparing the cost benefit analysis and preparing the package for the board to discuss and stuff like that. I think it probably warrants a portion of a refund, but I guess, what the board might be comfortable with, if anything. But they're requesting a refund of the full 10, and I told them, we would look, but it is not refundable. We would probably consider, partial refund. So.
Do you think keeping 2,500 is enough for the effort we put into it, or more? Throw a number.
Lyle, most of the
You're
time.
looking at me.
Yeah, well, I'm just,
Well, if it's Lyle, we gotta keep
Yeah,
the full 10.
Yeah, there's a significant amount of work that
Yeah.
goes into processing.
I was thinking of funding half of the amount.
And, the 2,500 is clearly indicated as non-refundable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And in my opinion, we spent more than
Yeah.
$2,500.
I mean, I'm comfortable with say half of it, because.
Would you think 5,000 of the 10 is fair? I mean, because you did,
I-
there were 4 projects, so
Yeah,
I'm assuming the work was
I-
somewhat
I tend
repetitive.
to agree with David. I think that half is.
Okay.
And I guess it'd be different if we didn't also have 2 other projects that just closed with them.
I mean, in reality, that's $100 an hour, 50 hours. I mean, any way you want to slice it, I mean, that's a fairly going rate for professional services.
One quick question. Our policy says it's a non-refundable fee.
Deducted from the final fee. If
Do
the
we
project
have
goes
audit
forward.
concerns if we decide to refund a portion of it?
No, I don't believe so. I think as a board, you have that power.
I think we justify it by the fact that it did not go all the way. I mean, as long as we document why.
Because we also, Paul, if you recall, we've collected reduced fees from certain projects. Remember, we kind of clustered a couple of them and said, hey, it's not 4 projects, it's treated as one. So we've done the opposite where we've collected reduced fees.
Then I would move we refund
50%.
50% of the application fees.
So that would be 5,000, we keep 5.
Yep.
Okay, just making sure we get.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? On the motion, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And like I said, I feel different if we didn't also have like the 2 other projects we just closed on and recently beyond that.
Well, I think that's fair. I think we're being more than fair.
They won't feel the same way, but that's life.
The amount of,
Sometimes you eat the bear, sometimes the bear eats you.
the spinning we had to do on that project, from,
Yeah, I
they
don't feel.
dragged us, let's not forget, this all began back when Don was
Yep.
the chief executive officer, and they were not responding to him, and we were asking for applications, so he didn't send it. I mean, they created their own mess.
Exactly.
Been a year.
I agree wholeheartedly with. I feel guilty one bit.
Okay,
See,
let's go back to 146 Arsenal.
Okay, well, we've got Brad Arthur here from Paradigm Environmental and Mike Harris from the BCA group. So I thought maybe have them get a quick overview. And Brad and Mike, I'm not sure if it's best to kind of start with the overall plan, Mike, that you've been coordinating with Brad and Priscilla. Maybe Brad, start off with kind of an assessment of where we're at with the what we found and what the process is with EPA. Then maybe Mike talk about how we address it. So.
Okay. So I don't know how far back you want to go, but so we most recently completed the pilot test work that we discussed in the last meeting. And we had really some good results out of that and found that we could not guarantee, but optimistically achieve the level of 1 ppm of PCB in the concrete by just scarification with no chemical extraction. And that's good news. The chemical extraction is very aggressive, which would be by nature to be able to combat something like the PCBs. But it allows fewer steps and potentially less of an issue with remnants of the chemical extraction materials. So based on that, Mike and Purcell and everyone has been talking about how we go through with just scarification of the concrete. And one thought that we came up with is do it in an iterative style. So we know at 1/4 of an inch we had some good success, but also some at 1/8 of an inch. So, the idea would be to scarify 1/8 of an inch, at least in a initial area, do some concrete borings, analyze those for PCBs, and see how successful we were. If for some reason we weren't successful, we would go down the next 1/8 of an inch to where we pretty much know that the PCBs are gone.
Are we gonna do the complete asbestos abatement prior to starting any scarifying?
Yes, that all has to be done first. And actually, we have to do some demolition of non-contaminated materials, drywall, carpet, et cetera, prior to doing any of the remedial work.
Brad, you would use the same style of equipment enclosures for both asbestos and dust-borne silica anyway, correct? So
That's
there's
correct.
not really an additional enclosure or negative air systems or anything?
That's correct. It's just a different filtration for the dust than it is for the asbestos. We go from a HEPA filter to a combination of a HEPA and a charcoal filter potentially.
Is this just an analysis, or we determine there's asbestos in the building?
No, we know there's asbestos in the floor tile.
The floor tile.
That was the one thing that was tested.
And that we expected. Why expect that as part of the overall project? What we did not expect was finding the PCB.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the asbestos abatement will be on the Y?
Yeah, either directly or indirectly. So we may end up, so there'll be counterparts, we won't take on that cost since they would have been dealing with that anyways. We may take on that cost in our project and swap out, you know, because as Brad mentioned and Michael explained, there'll be some demolition involved. Then of course we have to rebuild it back to what it was. So why might take on the rebuilding? If we did, you know, it's going to work. We're trying to work out what works best, so it's still equivalent. You know, it's
As far as what was in the Y's additional scope, to kind of ask a further question of Dave's, they were gonna remove the floor tile and the mastic?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, but the mastic is the part that we now have to basically fund the
mastic would be
the control of the contaminant.
bulk removal anyway, as Brad can explain, but what happened was because the mastic was contaminated, that leached into the cement, which caused.
So, I mean, so our scope of work, if you want to call it, starts at the top of the concrete.
Yes.
Yes.
So the tile and the mastic and everything that goes along with that, it was in the Y's budget and in their scope regardless. Our scope of work starts at the face of the concrete.
But we'll also include some of the demolition and rebuild our responsibility. Because the demo is to get underneath some of those walls.
But I'm sure in practicality, they're gonna scarify the mastic off with the concrete. So I mean, there's that, like you said, that horse trading of, let's do this common sense wise.
Can I ask Brad a question? And so we know if we go 1/4 inch, we get everything we need. In some of the areas, an 1/8 inch. If we just go and scarify the whole 1/4 inch versus doing it, going back and testing it, is it that much more of a cost to take the full 1/4 inch off the whole floor and just get it over with and be sure we've got it all than doing it and going back and checking it and finding areas we have to go back and do more? Is it exponentially more expensive to take that extra 1/8 inch off?
Yeah, I'll comment. So the initial bulk cost is in the mobilization in the initial scarification. So that by square foot is much higher than the iterative process. However, there's other factors involved. The weight of the extraction, or excuse me, the scarified material, and the fact that that has to go to Michigan is a big factor. The hauling and the incineration costs of the PCB waste. So if we can save on that, it does reduce the overall cost of the project significantly and is much more than the iterative testing that we would do in the middle.
Okay.
It potentially saves significant time on the project as well.
Okay.
The scarification process is relatively slow, probably doing upwards of maybe 2,000 square feet a day per machine.
At what depth though? The 2,000 square feet is the per eighth?
Per 1/8 of an inch.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it'd be 1,000 per quarter simply?
Yes,
Okay.
simply, yeah.
So in your analysis, it's cheaper to do it in the take an 1/8 inch and then go back if you got to.
It could be cheaper.
Okay.
So we may find very early on that taking an eighth of an inch is not gonna
Okay.
achieve the level we need, and we'll go right to the full quarter of an inch.
A question from one of your, I think it was one of your prior presentations or maybe in our emails. I thought bulk weight actually helped us with the tipping fee because the amount of contaminant per bulk weight would be reduced and the tipping fee would be less, or did I misunderstand? Like if you're taking an eighth that's more highly contaminated, the tipping fee would be higher presumably than a quarter with the same amount of contaminants, so you actually have less ppms in that waste. I thought I picked that
Well,
up
that's
in
what
some
we're
of our
talking about, whether
emails.
one of the options might be.
That was removing
That was the whole
floor.
Yeah.
But wouldn't the same take place with quarter versus eighth? I mean, weights are friend.
Thanks for saying that.
Not really.
It is. I don't mean personal.
In terms of the disposal process, what happens to it? It goes to an incinerator?
It goes to an incinerator. PCB waste is incinerated.
So does the agency have a long-term liability with that?
From, well, you as the generator of the waste have responsibility to ensure that it's disposed of properly. So through this process, there will be waste manifests that are generated. We'll track it from cradle to grave. And once it's incinerated, you'll get confirmation back that it has been disposed of properly.
It doesn't go to a landfill or anything like that?
No.
It just burn it up?
Not at those levels. It does have to get burned.
Mike, you want to kind of give an overview of the, and so BCA is kind of coordinating with Brad and with Purcell, because they'll need to take Brad's guidance on the remediation, translate some design aspects of it, and then be looking at Purcell eventually for actually doing the management.
Okay, so
One more thought on the scarification process, eighth inch versus a quarter. The scarification is done in layers. So it's not as though if we decide a quarter inch is gonna be necessary over the entire building, we can go right to a quarter inch. It's still gonna be either 16th inch pass or an eighth. So regardless, it's a process, and it's, each time we scarify or go through the entire building, it's the added time too, which is a concern.
Yeah, so it's two passes to get to.
Yeah, so just for confirmation, that Paradigm's doing the environmental.
Yep.
BCNA is gonna be doing the architectural, so.
Yeah, we're preparing the full set of documents for Purcell to procure to bid, to get pricing from. The information that Brad's providing will insert in our set, but it'll be a comprehensive set from mobilization right through the putback, well, the demolition, whatever's necessary to get to the slab itself. The scarification process, the information comes from Brad. And then once it's scarified, the next step is to put a slab back. We're either gonna go back with topping that is the depth of what was scarified out to give a nice smooth underlayment for the finished floors, which will eventually go on. We're also thinking that it may be more beneficial and there might be a cost, a balance to be made if we go back with a thicker depth. If we take out a quarter, we might want to go back with actually an inch. If we go back with a quarter, we're using a very expensive cast underlayment. It's sort of a pie product or a Ardex. If we can go back with a thicker material, we can use something that's more concrete, cementitious-like, and the material costs are much less, and I think the application costs. It may prove to be economically the equivalent, but that's something that we're still in the process.
Have we considered this project separate from the WISE project?
Yes.
Yeah.
So is Purcell now our GC for this?
Well, we haven't got, so what'll happen is, Mike, you can follow me, explain this, is that the BCA group would develop the design specs, all stuff that Purcell would use to bid the project on our behalf. Purcell would then be the construction man, they would be actually managing the people doing the demolition, the remediation, the build.
So we would be paying Purcell as our construction manager.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's either that or have Marshall and I do it.
I didn't know if this was for open competitive bid.
Get a free cubicle with every quarter inch.
So I think I may have mentioned this previously. So our intent at this point would be to utilize BCA and Purcell use under our procurement policy, doing the single source. So single source is when, sole source when there's only 1% can do it. Single source, there may be other options for doing it, but for reasons of expediency, familiarity with the project, we can, instead of bidding for those services. But then what we would do is we would bid for the remediation service. So when we contract out for that, they would get proposals, then we would have to approve the bid for that.
So just rolling in with Dave, so Paradigm's working with BCA then, so you're the environmental engineers, leads on this?
Yeah, we're contracting directly with Brad for that, yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand the
So we're
relationship.
contracting directly with
Okay.
Paradigm, and then, BCA basically coordinating, taking that stuff from Paradigm and translating it.
So we have one contract relationship with Paradigm.
Yep.
We're gonna have a contract relation with BCA.
Yeah.
And then everything else that happens from
Well, another
BCA
one-
downwards, we don't.
Well, another one per cell,
Per cell.
then everything
Okay.
forward will have to actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because they're familiar with the product, they've been involved with this in the beginning, it'll be cheaper, quicker, faster, we've got too much at stake to try to delay this by going through a whole RFP process.
One quick question. You had mentioned about the extensive amount of work that needed to be done to get a plan in front of the EPA for this. Has that begun for this remediation program?
It has, yeah, so that's where the next thing I was going to say, that's why I stood up, is that the next key hurdle is completing the remediation plan, the self-implemented remediation plan for the EPA, and then getting it in front of them. That groundwork has been laid with the EPA already. We've had many conversations with them and have already started formulating that remediation plan through the testing that we've been doing and really how we got to this point in the decision we've made.
Yeah, and hopefully Brad's ongoing communication with the EPA that you've been carrying on will actually maybe help expedite.
So will we meet the start date required for the grants from the federal government?
We will.
Okay.
We will have to.
The good part is that we don't have to wait for the EPA approval to start some of the other work.
Okay.
Demolition and the asbestos abatement work. That can all be done outside of the EPA approval.
Mike, you may not be able to answer this, but the 1/4-inch we're removing, and we talked about putback, and I get that. Is it even necessary? Is a 1/4-inch elevation difference going to affect the WISE build-out plans? Like, why are we putting something back? I'm assuming they're putting a flooring in there anyway.
Well, when the scarification process is done, it's gonna be a very rough surface.
I get that.
Regardless, we would need that smooth quarter, we'd have to go back with the 1/4 inch to get it smooth.
So, but they're putting something over the floor, whether it's smooth or rough.
Yeah, but the finished product that's going over that would have ripples in it or would have deviations if there wasn't a smooth under.
Okay. So they're not putting like a tiling down or like a cementitious or masonry style tile, or they're putting something
Well, there'll
else?
be various areas, there'll be ceramic tile in the bathrooms, there'll be sports flooring in the
Okay.
courts, but it all comes down to.
They'll have
quality.
wood, yeah, they'll have wood.
I guess it goes to what my biggest concern is, how much of this is already in the WISE budget? It seems like something might be redundant. And, I mean, a smooth surface, I guess, is what we had promised them.
Why don't we have a full laid floor? It doesn't cause an issue when you get.
No, I get all of that, but
No, our
I work for a masonry company, and you can put things over unsmooth surfaces and make them look good.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm getting at. Scarification isn't gonna be like a sine wave. It's gonna be slight ripples, you fill it with gravel, and you put a tiling on. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way to preserve and horse trade with Purcell and why that we're not doing extra work just because.
Well, the areas of floor that they're gonna put tile down, commercial tile, I mean, the base or the mortar under the tile would completely.
That's my point.
Would completely cover the scarification.
These days, the tile is on mastic, so it's not necessarily a mortar set. Like you're thinking of a thick mortar set. This is a mastic. It's a glue, thin set glue.
Okay.
Yeah, but what the way we're putting the plans together, there may be alternatives, like they talked about the concrete, you could go back with a 1/4, go back with an inch.
Mhm.
We'll get the pricing on all, and anything that is at all ambiguous, we can call it, we can make it a bid item, so we can go back to you with pricing, and
Okay.
you can determine if it's the WISE expense or the IDA.
I guess those are the only things, like, you bring up mastic, it seems like maybe it's cheaper for us to pay for an extra 1/8 inch mastic than put back an inch of this. Yeah, those are the things that we're gonna rely upon your experience, but I have a genuine concern about how much, I mean, clearly how much money we have to spend versus how much was in the original bid. That's the balancing act we're trying to, really clearly determine. This is a long-range partnership, so I'm sure we're all in this for the same purpose, and we just wanna make sure we get through to the end. The end goal is to do it on budget and on time, and that we all have to do that, and safely.
So
I have no doubt he's 2 steps ahead of us.
Oh, I'm sure he is.
Well, and we'll know more once they get the design and look at those cost alternatives. We'll know more.
And we've got Justin and Harris Beach on the board to make sure that everything.
Yeah.
And it's nothing against these guys, but to make sure that we're protected with the EPA and environmentally and everything like that. So all that documentation that Paradigm will provide, they're gonna review and make sure that we're covered, right? You shake your head.
Yeah, and Joe, I forget his last name, Justin, your partner.
Yeah, my partner, Joe Piccioni, is
Piccioni,
the environmental specialist. He's kind of riding shotgun here to monitor the actual remediation and the EPA monitoring and enforcement stuff. So
Perfect.
should be a big deal.
Dave, from your standpoint, I guess this is more semantics. I mean, I think normally this falls under, you have approval once we do it. Are you probably gonna do some checkbacks, like as we, like, I think you have a document in front of us to approve some form of expense, but it may or may not fit under your role to just do things. Is your plan to kind of keep coming back to the board?
As we need to, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
we want to keep everybody informed of this thing as we move ahead. Yeah, so I think we're looking, at least for now, I mean, approval to engage BCA with the letter. And Brian, did we get a proposal from you yet? I just got back into town late last night. Did we get a proposal back from you?
Yes, I seen that last night.
Did that get up to the board?
No, well, yeah, you have some older stuff from Paradigm. I don't recall anything recent.
This is for BCA.
No, he was talking about
Yeah.
Paradigm,
Yeah.
I assume.
I said something yesterday, but I was in flight. I didn't know if I got.
We have BCA's. I don't recall anything from Paradigm in the last, weeks.
Well, the good news is though, correct me if this is a generality, the cost to remediate that probably just got cut in half, did it not?
Well, not quite. Again, there's some upfront costs and mobilization and so on, but if we're successful with an 1/8 of an inch, it's a significant cost reduction.
Okay. I guess to continue the discussion, so BCA put a proposal, you got a resolution, you get approval. They've actually submitted a proposal in short form AIA terms. I guess a question for Justin, does our procurement policy allow us to use third-party set of terms, or do we have terms that we're gonna want to employ when we develop a purchase order for consulting services, essentially?
Generally speaking, the consulting services or professional services get from most procurement policies. So there's the ability to directly engage for consultants, professional services.
I just want to make sure we're considering the full package. I mean, AIA is a very standard set of terms and conditions, nothing to matter with them, but I didn't know if we had terms that maybe BCA hasn't seen from us that we have in our procurement policy.
All right. If the IDA is going to directly engage any construction services, stuff outside of consultancy or professional, then an AIA is a good contract to use in standard form that's fairly accepted industry-wide. There may be some specific matter with respect to the IDA that would integrate, matters subject to appropriation, things like that.
And when we get into engaging Purcell, I think the short form doesn't really address a lot of the indemnity and other matters that I think don't come into play when we're engaging an architect engineer. So maybe we have to consider something different when we engage Purcell, if we have to engage them directly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. I've run out of questions, Dave, sorry.
That's fine. Are you ready to make a motion that we?
I would move we engage BCA for design services.